Hello everyone, welcome to VIT Today, another interview. Today with us we have Mr. Harish Salve, a man of great honor. He's currently the member of Queen's Counsel. He served as the former Solicitor General of Supreme Court. Very honored to have you here today, sir. Sir, I would just like to open this interview with a fundamental question. Is the Indian judiciary under threat of not remaining independent? Because there has been a lot of discussion around the same. So, what's your take on the allegations being made against the Apex Court by certain individuals and lawyers?
I have said this before publicly, and I'm saying this again. Those allegations are as unfortunate as they are untrue. The Indian judiciary is robust. The Indian judiciary is independent. The definition of independence cannot be flexible, but as long as you do what I want you to do, you're independent. The judiciary must be independent of the government. The judiciary must be independent of pressure groups. The judiciary must be independent of all kinds of bend or bias. And I find it a matter of great concern that the debate has become so binary. There are some people who say we brought a case to court, and if the judges don't decide it our way, the judges are not independent.
Right.
That's no way to which there's no way, that's not the way in which one should judge judiciary. That's not the way in which one should call in question the independence of judges. And I therefore feel that this entire hullabaloo created about judges not being independent is unfortunate, it is politically motivated, and it should never be.
Right. But sir, like when you talk about remaining independent as a judge and also making sure that you're free of biases, there's a lot of discussion in terms of the idea that, like, at the end of the day, judges are also just humans. So to what extent can they actually be free of biases? To what extent can they not have to go ahead with the political pressure that's on them, not have to go ahead with the criticism that comes from the rest of the populace?
Let's take each one. The judges are human. And as we always say, as humans, we always carry our can't helps to the bench. So you always had judges who sometimes are more liberal. You had judges who are sometimes more conservative.
Mm-hmm.
You had judges who are strongly pro free enterprise. There are judges who are more ideologically bent towards socialism.
Right.
And we all carry this to the bench. I mean, when you take an oath, your oath is to do justice without fear or favor. Fear of favor doesn't mean you leave your intellect behind. Fear of favor means you administer the law honestly. And that's a very wide canvas. So judges are humans, yes, and judges will make mistakes, yes. And as we always say, the Supreme Court is not final because it is right. The Supreme Court is right because it is final. Because at some point, the controversies must end.
Right.
The second is, are judges subject to political pressure? Why should a judge be subject to political pressure? A judge, once appointed, has complete independence of office. He has what is called status of removability. And the threshold for removal of a judge is very, very high. In fact, we've seen that even judges, some of whom have had very obviously errant behavior, they had to be injured rather than removed. So if you have a status of irremovability, you normally do not succumb, you do not have any pressure. If you have an ideological bias, pro or anti a point of view, that is not government pressure. So I don't think this whole, the edifice of this whole argument is flawed. I don't think judges are subject to any pressure. Why would a judge, once he becomes a high court judge, he's not subject to any pressure. Right. Once he becomes a Supreme Court judge, his salary doesn't depend on the goodwill of a minister. His job doesn't depend on the goodwill of a minister. So I think, this is all more of a myth. Thirdly, independence is a quality of your character, and fearlessness is a part of your character. In fact, I remember as early as 1981, when Mr. Sirvai was arguing the first judge's case, he told the Supreme Court that some of the most anti-government judgments come from the administrative court of France, the Counsel d'État, and those judges are ordinary government servants. They don't even have status of irremovability. So here, look at this country. Here, our judges are so robustly independent. They are all servants of the crown. So they are all Her Majesty's servants. So, convention, tradition, that is important. And that is what creates the checks and balances. And I'm sorry to say, the vocabulary of courts today is destroying that. Whether sharp words come from the bar or sharp words come from the bench, that is the only real threat to the independence of the judiciary and to the institution flourishing and remaining the way it has to be.
Right, so you have also mentioned in terms of how judges also bring with them their own ideologies in terms of whether it be conservative, whether it be liberal. So sometimes some judgments are passed that the rest of the populace may not exactly deem to be fair, and in all of those cases, right, there is certain sort of criticism that is passed towards the Indian judiciary. So to what extent do you think the Indian judiciary accepts criticism gracefully? Like, at what point or at what instance does this sometimes classify as the contempt of court also?
See, Indians, first of all, you must understand, we as Indians have a chip on our shoulder. None of us take well to criticism. Okay. Look at certain other countries. Look at the kind of political humor you have in America. Look at the kind of political humor you have in this country. In America, you had Alec Baldwin, who used to play Trump every day when Trump was president. In this country, you have a show on TV called Spitting Images. You have to see it sometime. How they make fun of Boris and the Home Secretary Priti Patel and Matt Hancock, etc., etc. So, and everybody laughs about it. Mm-hmm. I was in California when the O.J. Simpson trial was going on. And because the judge made certain rulings, there were some young students who dressed up like judges. I remember his name, Judge Ito. They dressed up like him and they were dancing on the streets. And they said, there is a clown inside court, we are the clowns outside court. Oh. And when they asked Ito, what do you say? He said, they look very cute. Mm-hmm. End of story. See, there's as one of the English judges said in contempt, when somebody says something nasty about it, grin and bear it. So we Indians have to learn the art to laugh on ourselves. We take ourselves too seriously. We have to learn the art of laughing on ourselves. So as an Indian, the judges are as tolerant as Indians can be. Now, should they be more tolerant? I feel so. And most of them should. See, today in the age of social media, my heartfelt advice to all, particularly to judges, is don't have a Twitter account and don't even bother to check what people say about you on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook or whatever other platforms people use. Come to court, do your job and go back home. And let the world take care of itself.
So just a follow-up on that, in terms of the seriousness and the discipline that comes with it, is this something that we have within our systems of being Indian, and the reason that there is a lack of humor in accepting criticism?
It's a temperament. We take ourselves too seriously. We take our nation state too seriously. If everything becomes a matter of Indian reputation, everything becomes a matter of our personal prestige. I think we need to loosen up. I'm talking purely as an Indian human being, and we need to learn to laugh at ourselves. We need to inject more humor into our lives.
Right.
Not to get all tied up in a knot if somebody cracks a joke on you. So I think that's a temperament which we have to build.
Mm-hmm. Sir, so if we talk about the very famous ICJ case that you fought on behalf of India for Kulbhushan Jadhav, can you tell us a little bit more about your preparation and the course of ruling that occurred on that day? in terms of what you had to consider?
Well, it's very interesting. It all started as a casual conversation between, I was actually on a TV debate,
Mhm.
and in general sort of a way, I said maybe the government should explore the option of the ICJ. The next day, I got a call from late Sushma ji,
Mhm.
who I had worked with when I was Solicitor General, who I personally knew very, very well. And she said, "You said something and it has been picked up, so you now better deliver." I said, okay, let me now look up. So we looked up, and there was a lot of help we got from the External Affairs Ministry also. And they came up with this idea that we could maybe make out a case for violation of the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations. So it started from there, and we said if we make out some case and get a foot in the door, at least the execution will be stayed. And it gives Government of India some time for back channel talks and see if something can be done. So we had to get it done, and we were very worried if the news sneaks out. If they execute him, that will be the end of story. So virtually we worked on it, and three of us, the then secretary who was dealing with it, and one of my juniors, Chitna Rai, and myself, we used to work on the draft on a pen drive, in which we used to share the pen drive with each other, and it went to the government, they corrected it. Only one copy was printed. And that was given to Sushma ji. It was printed in her office. She took it to the Prime Minister, got it cleared, brought it back, tore up that copy. I brought the pen drive to London, got it printed in Blackstone Chambers, and that's how we did the filing.
Wow.
And we first managed to get what is called provisional measures. We got a very quick hearing, we got provisional measures, and the court injuncted his execution. And then we did the final hearing. A lot of very interesting issues came up. And we got a lot of relief. We asked for releasing him, but we knew quite well that that was a bit of a long shot. But we've got the relief by way of effective. And what, according to us, what Pakistan is doing today is still not effective review. So let us see how it plays out. Pakistan up to now has been so embarrassed, they haven't even given us the charge sheet, they haven't given us the judgment. Because according to us, it's all hocus pocus.
So this is a long process in terms of what happens, considering all of the actors.
Well, at least he's alive. They have to keep him well. They know they are under the spotlight of the ICJ. So if his health goes down or something goes down and we go and make a fuss, they'll be embarrassed.
Right. Next, just like a follow-up on that. So there was a couple of rulings that ICJ made in 2017, and almost 47 months post it, Pakistan has failed to implement the judgment, like you said, that they haven't even sent any judges along or judgments along. So in that instance, what is the next course of action that our government can take so we can see?
I'll tell you what has happened. Pakistan went and announced that they had won the case. Now, they created public opinion on the footing they won the case. So now it looks very odd for them to say, actually, you know what, we did. So they are now backpedaling and saying, okay, we have to consider. So they've come out with an ordinance. Under that ordinance, it goes to the High Court.
Okay.
We had pointed out that judicial review is never an effective answer because we start right from his arrest and his illegal confession. And it has to be a court where you can challenge that confession, which you can't challenge in a writ petition because they have the same system as ours. You can't file a writ challenging, etc. So that is where we are now stuck. And what we were trying to tell Pakistan is, please have effective relief and review. So you must give us all the papers, you must give him his charges, you must give us his evidence. And after you give all that, we will make and set up a court, independent court, which will hear him, not a military court. And allow a foreign barrister, because the Lahore Bar Association and all the hype was so much, they had passed resolution saying no self-respecting Pakistani should appear for this Indian spy and so on. So the trouble is these things get so politicized. Then how do you expect justice to be done? And justice must appear to be done. So they came up with this half-cock ordinance in which it just went to the High Court. There is no clarity on how the case is going to be dealt with. So we said, sorry, this is not good enough. And twice when our lawyer went to collect papers on some spurious excuse, they shooed him away. So now we said, we are not participating. Then they said, India must come and participate. See, India is a sovereign nation. We don't give in to the jurisdiction of the Pakistan court.
Right.
The ICJ judgment adds a sentence. They consider Pakistan's defense that their existing legal system is good enough. And they say, no, it's not. And they say Pakistan must provide for effective remedy if necessary by amending the law.
Okay. Sir, so
They've come with an ordinance which says nothing.
So, like, on to the next question of our segment. There was a previous interview in which you mentioned something called the Operation Reset. Can you tell our viewers what exactly that is and what it
I
means?
still, after a nation goes through the kind of trauma with the world, every country has gone through, kind of trauma which has gone through, it has to some extent brought us together as Indians. It helps you prioritize that which is really important in life. So what we can do is use this as an opportunity to go back and see what's wrong. And I have a feeling, I've had this feeling for a while, there is a lot of mistrust between the citizenry and the government. And part of the reason why you hear that living in India, doing business in India is very difficult is sometimes you feel it is the citizen versus the government. This mindset must go, and we must make the administration more friendly. And I must say, Prime Minister Modi is trying his best to do that. You have now what is called the new nameless, faceless assessment procedures. You have more accountability. So I said, this is the time for India reset. Let's have faith in each other.
Right.
Let us understand this government is part of us, and government is not some alien force which can deliver. Like when we ran out of oxygen, each Indian did his bit to try and deal with the problem. If you sit back and say, oh, the government must provide and criticize the government, it's no use if you're somebody who's joking. Do whatever you can. So how we all came together instead of us versus government. If we capture the spirit and carry it forward, like the Janta curfew, the Prime Minister saying stay at home and people stayed at home. We didn't have a law which said it is illegal to go out. So that is what is become important, and that is something which we must consider, because India is too big and too complex and too cumbersome to govern unless you have a greater degree of cooperation between the citizenry and the state. You cannot live in this constant state of adversity, adversarial attitude. You must loosen up.
Right. So the Operation Reset is basically just about, in terms of how this is giving us an opportunity to be like on side with the government, to sort of understand where they're coming from.
Government must understand us, we understand the government, the administration must understand that they are not all powerful. As much as we citizens must understand that we have to work with the administration to find solutions. Rule breaking is the favorite Indian national pastime. We have to find some other more productive pastime.
Right. Instead of being the devil's advocate all the time, you have to look at more constructive opinions.
Yeah.
So the next question, in terms of the Maharashtra's police case and the politics around that, have remained in the headline for the past few weeks, like from the Ambani bomb scare to corruption allegations, followed by the SBI probe that was involved, and even resignation of the Home Minister. Sir, so how do you like to comment on the tone of events and the High Court and Supreme Court ordering a CBI probe in the case?
Look, I make no bones about this. Let me tell you honestly. I was involved initially in the cases against Arnab Goswami.
Right.
Believe me, governments have always used the police, but I have never seen such a brazen attempt by an administration to muffle a TV channel. Yes, Arnab Goswami has his own style. He has his critics, he has his fans. Yes, he uses language which people should or should not use.
Mhm.
But you cannot use the might of the state machinery to muscle him. And that is exactly what was done. And that showed you the rot that had set into the system. And that very system, once the government of the day starts using the police in this way and starts corrupting the police for its own purpose, the corrupt police will have followed its own path. And that is why you see they're all falling like nine pins, whether it be the Home Minister, whether it be the Bombay Police Commissioner, whether it be his favored boy, now his arch enemy, Mr. Vase. It tells you the state of rot in our democracy. And I think that is far more important than one particular incident. How awful is it that the commissioner of police, see, let's be very clear, no commissioner is appointed unless he's close to a government, and especially commissioner of Mumbai and the Maharashtra government. So this tongue-in-cheek comment saying he was appointed on merits, I'd rather believe in Mother Goose than believe in these kind of stories. So you cannot have, it needs for some soul searching as to how low will we fall. Every time in India you feel you hit bottom, you realize, no, we can fall even further. And can you ever imagine we call Bombay the financial capital of India? And this is India's most prominent, most respected businessman. A policeman is putting bombs inside a car outside his house and threatening his children. I mean, and then we call ourselves a country which is on the path of progress. So, we have to sit back and think how low will our administration fall? And this is what happens when you have governments formed in this fashion. I'm sorry, I don't like making political comments. But it is really distressing. And when you sit here and see people ask, oh, what's going on in your financial capital? You hide your face and you say, no, I don't know. I haven't read the papers today. What do you say? The police commissioner, the head of police of your biggest city, your most prominent financial city is involved in a scam involving corruption. And guess what? Next is your home minister who's involved in corruption. And guess what? His favored cop, oh, he was driving in a Mercedes-Benz and living in a hotel. What is going on in our city? What is going on in our country?
So on to the next question. In terms of an interview you were involved in last year, you mentioned how the judicial proceedings and definitions of justice must change to reduce the event of just like how justice is served. And you also spoke about like the dire need for more courts, better paid and facilitated judges just to improve the judiciary system, and also removal of the overlap between the state government and any criminal investigations, like you pointed out earlier. So, in terms of these changes that were required, what has currently changed within the past 5 years, especially in these aspects?
Nothing really.
Sorry?
Nothing. We talk of governments not interfering in police, right? What were we talking about a minute ago? Has anything changed? See, we have to understand democracy is a very fragile virtue. And until each one of us citizens decides that we want freedom, we want democracy, and it is not negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And on that strong premise, we do not accept politics of corruption. We do not accept this politics of this kind of chicanery. Nothing is going to change. Today, the justice delivery system, we have some very good judges. There's no question about it. But the justice delivery system lacks resources. The criminal investigation system lacks resources. It lacks credibility. And despite all that we have done, the credibility has not come. See, for an average Indian, a great Supreme Court judgment on a great principle of constitutional law is not what bothers him. The average Indian's interaction is with the magisterial court, it's with the city civil court, and that is why justice has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Till we fix that, till we put in more resources, till we put in more judges, and we will put in more judges when we give higher salaries, and when we reprioritize the rule of law, then and then alone will this change come. And we have not reprioritized rule of law. That is very clear.
Sir, so within these structures, it like just in terms of priority and how it works, like if you were to currently like put how the Indian system or like how India has put its priority in terms of judiciary, executive, and like the rest of the people, how would the priority stand in today's terms?
See, ironically, the Indian judiciary is perhaps one of the most powerful judiciaries, but that's you're talking about the Indian constitutional judiciary. You're talking about the Supreme Court and the High Courts. And on that score, my only concern is lack of numbers, especially at the High Courts. We created commercial courts. It is very necessary to have, if you want India to be $1 trillion economy, one of the very important features of $1 trillion economy is quick justice dispute resolution systems. And we've created a commercial court. But how did we create a commercial court? By changing the nameplate outside the courtroom. We have the same number of judges without any additional facilities, and we have created commercial courts. So we need more judges, we need higher salaries, we need better facilities for our judges. So that has to be done. But the bigger concern I have is the common Indian, the poor Indian. His interaction is at a much lower level with the justice delivery system. And that is where we have to focus our reforms. Criminals languishing in jail for years before trial. That is where we have to focus our reforms. People arrested and denied bail, and this new culture we have of trial by embarrassment. You accuse, you throw in jail, you make the person spend 2 years in jail, and then you forget about it. And hell with his trial. This whole culture has to go. And I'm sorry for this. Everybody is responsible, Supreme Court downwards.
So just a follow-up on that situation in terms of how a lot of justice is delayed, the quality of prison systems, the quality of the courts themselves. In terms of all of those things, like how can we as like individuals push for that level of change?
See, ultimately, it is for a government is of us, from us, and as good as us. If we make it an electoral issue, if we show sensitivity to the rule of law, if we run a campaign for the rule of law, then if it appears to a political party that it will yield dividends, then the change will come. Otherwise, in India, I don't see any other change coming. See, partly, and you can't look at this at the union government level because the union government functions on a very different idiom. If you look at it at the level of the state governments, sometimes you feel there is a vested interest in the system of keeping it the justice delivery system at bay. If you see the degree of criminalization of politics, especially at the level of the states, I mean, it's a no-brainer that if 25% of your MLAs are going to go to jail if their trials are expedited, then why will they want a faster justice delivery system? Or you can use the criminal justice system to keep the sword hanging on a person's head for years. Or you can use the police to create criminal cases. And as we've seen happening in Mumbai, everybody has a stake in a dysfunctional system. I feel my generation has almost failed India, but I see so much hope in your generation. You people are far more focused. You people are much better informed. You're the new digital generation. Your value systems are strong, and I am sure if you people are correctly advised, if you people are correctly guided, you will make the India of our dreams, not just your dreams.
Thank you. So this level of advice that we'd have would be coming from our seniors, coming from people that have had their experiences. So in terms of using this advice, because it's all new and it's all looking towards a generation of change, but like when any sort of change comes about, there's always like how people react or people accept that change. So what can we do in terms of knowing that even when we have to change
Do not accept anything just because you are told that that's the right thing to do. Challenge everything, test everything. You people have ready access to global wisdom. Secondly, do not fall for this misconception that any criticism of your country is anti-national. Criticism of your country taken in the right spirit, reject most of it because most of it may be nonsensical. But that one critical comment is very important, which helps you improve. Test everything, challenge everything. And that's what I completely like about your generation. You are not in awe of your elders. You like confronting your elders. Always keep that spirit of testing and challenging everything you accept. And remember, our generation has at times compromised. Your generation is far more robust. Do not compromise. Think of what you do. Do not get swept off by notions. You're a very intelligent generation. Evaluate for yourself the correctness of everything which an elder tells you, and then accept it. And do not ever underestimate the importance of access to global wisdom which you have. You know, our scriptures, I remember the newspaper in Nagpur used to every morning carry a little inscription which I have read from a child, from my childhood days. It used to say, let noble thoughts come to us from all universities, from our Upanishads. Today, you can do that very easily in the digital generation. Live with that thought.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for that wise thought. But also, thank you so much for your time as well. I think this was a very engaging and interesting discussion. Thank you.